right, so are our other panelists ready to join us? I hope they are, because I'm about to introduce them. And they are Fredrik Neumann, he's the country manager for Nordics and DACH at WorldPay. David Sukasas Victoren, he's the director of business development at MasterCard. And Christian Hahn, who doesn't need an introduction, the CEO of Hubject. So gentlemen, come on up on stage. Hello,
Hi.
Hello.
Yes. Hey, nice to meet you. Marina. Good to see you.
Okay.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi. Hey.
So let's have a seat, everybody.
Thank you.
You know, it's kind of interesting because, Elias, I'm pretty sure that you used to be one of the most vocal opponents to physical credit card payments, at least at some point in the past. So you even started us out with your presentation. So what changed for you?
Good politicians might say that I was right at that time, and I'm also right now. So maybe the industry changed, the world changed. Also, credit card infrastructure is developing. We may not see that if we are not professionals. Maybe these guys will elaborate. But a lot of credit card technology has also changed. And of course, the scale is bigger. And we found now solutions that can be implemented in a cost-efficient manner. And we've been able to develop it together with the players who are the top of the world in payments in general.
So basically, a smart man is not afraid to change his mind if the situation changes, if you get more information. So that said, I do want to read to you all from a report by Juniper Research, claiming that, well, this is also should come as no surprise to everybody, that electric vehicle growth is still being hindered by a lack of public charging infrastructure. We know that. We know there's still work to be done. And according to the report, one of the major issues remains, I quote, a lack of standards around pricing and the apps used at various public charge points. So if we're hearing that people want standards around pricing in the apps, does the introduction of credit card payments present then the perfect solution for all EV drivers? Who would like to tackle this one?
Well, from our perspective, the reason for us entering into this was in order to facilitate for EV drivers. And we subscribe to the view that payments for EV charging was a big pain point for the existing drivers. And also, I believe, could even be a barrier for new drivers to move from fuel, from gasoline, to driving an EV. I can take only myself as an example. I have a hybrid car. Maybe I'm not allowed to say this in this forum, but I do. And I'm ashamed to say, but in many occasions, I actually fill that car up with gasoline. And in many cases, that is due to the complexity and the confusion of the different apps and solutions out there that basically makes it much simpler for myself to just go with a simple choice, which is not what I regard as the right choice, but the most convenient choice at the moment. And this is not a reality that we want to have out there. We want EV to be the simplest choice. And we think that card payments, obviously, is a key enabler for that, and that is the reason why we entered into this partnership together with Virta and WorldPay. And
I'm just curious, though, because Elias also touched upon this. I mean, there are all these new fintech solutions, and people who tend to drive electric cars maybe are the more keen to have the newest technologies and the newest innovations. So can we not really think that the credit card is a dying, payment system, that the physical card will be at some point replaced by these, other types of innovations, these fintech innovations? Like, what do you all say about that?
Yeah, I think if we look at this, definitely where we are coming from, we are, like Elias also said in the beginning, that you need to create an infrastructure that is scalable and that is cost efficient. And still what we see, yes, we have all these super apps and different payment methods, but at the end, if you really want to build something to scale, we still see that the credit card infrastructure is what is the common denominator in a lot of cases. We do also a lot of studies of how consumers actually react on why are they using certain payment methods. We do a lot of studies on that, and definitely in the case of EV charging, we see a lot of the consumers who want to use or want to pay for EV charging. They simply feel it takes too long time. And this is where you actually have tap and go and this type of functionality, which is really fast and easy. So I think there is a lot of that is being built into also the mobile-centric environment where you now have your phone and you can simply tap your phone and do your payment. So the convenience of that is super important to get the adoption. So both the scalability and the adoption rate is important to have.
Yeah, I can only agree to that. And I mean, of course, fintechs and new solutions are great, and we're all encouraging that. But when we ask consumers today about their preferences, about how they should be able to pay for EV charging, then the responses that we get are that people want to use the same payment methods that they use for other types of purchases, goods or services. And I mean, it makes sense. If you are a regular person and not an EV enthusiast, why would you prefer a different type of payment method when charging your electric vehicle than the one that you use for fueling your car or buying milk at the grocery store? And Elias showed some numbers here before about the preference for card payments, and we also did a study back in 2021 across 7 European countries. And in that study, we saw that 65% of the respondents actually preferred physical card payments, debit or credit, for charging their EV. And payment cards were also mentioned as the most convenient choice, as well as the best option for driving across countries in Europe.
Maybe to just add one point from our side, so to say, being the roaming supporter, so to say, in this round. And by the way, thank you for having this panel. I think it's a very important topic, and I would even say this is one of the topics we are discussing since a very long period of time, right? Since the beginning of e-mobility, we talk about either or, which also shows that there's a high importance connected with this topic. On the other hand, at least from our point of view, from my personal point of view, what I've learned in the last couple of years is that there will be not one dedicated solution, which is, so to say, ruling the charging world. We see right now, and Elias, you have perfectly summarized it in your presentation, that we even see new standards arising, like NEXT in the US in no time, right? It took a couple of weeks, and the whole US market changed, which at least surprised me a lot. And therefore, we as Subject also believe that we need to find a solution which is integrating other solutions. And as most of you know, in fact, credit cards are already a very important part of our industry, right? Because most customers are paying their charging stations already with a credit card payment. They're putting their credit card in the app, and then the charging session you're doing is being invoiced via your credit card. That's at least, from my point of view, the most normal way. So therefore, of course, there's a higher relevance. On the other hand, and we started to discuss today morning a bit about energy market integration, which we all believe is a very important future building stone of our ecosystem, and other services as well. And therefore, I also believe that to make this all happen, we need solutions like credit cards and many other solutions as well to be sure that it's moving in the right direction. So therefore, as said, I think credit cards are already used. I see some of the obstacles we mentioned already, complexity, price, and as you guys know very well, there's not one credit card system in place. There are many in place. But on the other hand, I also believe that this kind of complex ecosystem also will have enough space for different solutions, which needs to be perfectly combined from my point of view.
Yeah, Elise wanted to add something?
Yeah, and maybe as a kind of point when I say that I'm super enthusiastic about physical credit cards and the models that we have created that are cost efficient, at the same time, I'm definitely for the subscription business model. So the thing is that in European regulation, there was this mentioning about one-time payment that you have to be able to use anonymously without subscription. But it does not say that if you're asked to give your personal information, you wouldn't have to give them, or you couldn't give them. So I think that we all are kind of misinterpreting this. Instead of trying to build credit cards also as the best possible customer acquisition model for subscriptions, and using the newest technologies, tokenization, things like that to help. Or credit cards, there is a payment to the credit card. Which enables, for instance, energy management compensations directly to credit card, and so many opportunities that we kind of don't use because we stick to credit card is one for anonymous one-time payment and subscriptions for everything else. So the worlds will integrate.
Okay, so interesting, Elias. So you're suggesting that maybe using the credit card system could actually lead people to possibly consider a subscription-based service, but or is it the opposite? You know, are now credit card payments going to discourage people from turning to a subscription-based model? Kristen, what's your take on that? Are you worried that somehow by introducing the option to just pay by credit card, I don't need to have a subscription, I could just go wherever I want and take out my card, will that mean fewer people opting for a subscription service?
The good thing is we will see it in the next couple of years, right? Because there's now in Europe the regulation in place to put physical credit card readers on charging stations. As much as I really like to have simple solutions in place for customers, especially when we all want to reach a mass market, we need to find simpler solutions. I'm also a bit, let's say, concerned that the actual regulation is asking for a lot of additional requirements from operators as well, right? We all know that there's some complexity behind. And we talked about reliability, and we all can name many, many examples how reliability will be affected by physical hardware you need to put on top of charging stations. On the other hand, we also see it very much depends a bit on the market you're in, right? And we all know the example that somehow Germans are not big fans of digital payments and credit cards for whatever reason. And even if we have seen a kind of peak during COVID times, it now goes down again, and German people are used again to pay cash for whatever reason. On the other hand, we see a lot of Nordic countries, of course, and I just spent my holidays in Sweden, and everywhere you see no cash allowed. So that's, of course, the opposite. Again, this tells me that we need to find solutions for all kinds of customers. There will be customers who really prefer to swipe their credit card. That will work great. And there will be other customers who are not really convinced of credit cards. And they also need to be able to be integrated. And I think this is a bit the complexity, and I think also that's a complexity for all of you guys here to find exactly a solution how you can do this in a profitable way. Because by just adding more complexity and more solutions, you're not making more business, maybe even the opposite. And I think really, Elias, what you highlighted in your presentation, that the best solution would be a kind of solution which integrates all these kind of perspectives without stacking additional costs.
Kristen, you touched on something also very important that we talk about, I think, a lot, is every market is different. So you need to know your market, and you have to understand the needs and the habits of the people and what they are looking for. So maybe not every solution is going to work in every single market. So there needs to be some nuance there. Yeah, Elias.
So, sorry, I have to be a little bit against this.
Okay,
we are now in 36 markets, and they are definitely quite the same.
Interesting.
They are only developing in a bit different maturity levels, but the same issues are faced in all markets, and kind of same precautions and kind of same kind of thinking. And finally, the market matures, and everybody thinks that this is how it should be. So I don't think they're that much different.
Okay, so you're coming from the perspective thinking that obviously, for all the reasons you laid out, that credit card payments are good and something that people will use and will appreciate. And maybe it is like a very flexible way of payment, but won't it be actually the most expensive for the consumers in the long run? Isn't that something that all the EV drivers have to take into account? Maybe that's a question for MasterCard.
I don't think, from consumers, I don't think this is the most expensive solution. I don't know about the pricing of other solutions, obviously. But in Europe, we have a cap on interchange, for example, limiting that fee. And we say credit cards here all the time, but this solution is not limited to credit card. On our rails, we see even more debit card than credit card. And often these debit cards are provided for free by the main bank of many consumers. So I don't think that for the consumer perspective, this needs to be a more expensive solution. I rather think that this should be something that removes frictions and enable Europe to work more as a unified market when it comes to EV driving. But again, coming back to what you guys talked about before, we don't see this as something that will close any doors, but rather opening up and enable more people to be included and be able to drive electric vehicles. So if someone wants to pay through subscriptions, that's great. But if someone, like for example, my 70-year-old parents want to pay in the same way as they have done before, then that should also be possible. So basically, it's the digital inclusion here, the consumer choice that we want to enable through this type of partnership. But if there are better solutions in some countries when it comes to subscriptions, then go for that. But it should always be an option to go for the open solution as well.
And what about the impact on loyalty schemes? Like, how will the credit card be integrated into those types of things? Like, along with the subscription service, but also these loyalty schemes. Like, how is that going to work?
I think on that side, you need to look at also the credit card is something that has evolved. There is always new development happening with credit card. And this is an infrastructure which actually is very cost efficient. So if you want to do this in multiple countries, this project starts with the Nordics, and then we plan to expand this into a lot of countries. And if you want to roll out something quite fast, you definitely need to have some infrastructure which is beneficial, so you have the scalability of that. And credit card has that. What has also been built into credit card, and that is both managing the one-off payments, so you can do that with token, etc., but also connecting it with your loyalty schemes. So if you have card on file, if you have this type of functionality, you can also use that as a way to even do the checkout faster. So I think credit card has a lot of basic functionality that actually is beneficial for it to be both cost efficient and also easy to use for the consumers.
You convinced? You agree as well?
Yeah, exactly. I fully agree. But in panels, you should never always agree. The question you asked, what is most expensive or most cost efficient? So if we think about credit card solution, you might think that easy tap and pay solution, nothing else, integrated, super easy, and super simple and cost efficient. That's totally the opposite. And there are several things. There is the reliability part, there is the cybersecurity part and fraud prevention, and there is reliability. So in terms of the event successfulness, so basically, if you don't have a PIN pad with your credit card payment, it means that about every 50th charging event will fail. Can you afford to give another 2% again out of your SLA because you don't have a PIN pad for those every 50th event, because it's a randomized number, so it can happen every 10th event as well. And that's also something to think about when implementing solutions that are cost efficient, that where you spend the money. So I think when you do this kind of solution, it has to scale in a way that it can be cost efficient, but at the same time, you have to keep up the highest standards in quality and security and future-proofing technology.
Yeah. Maybe just to add one more point, I totally agree. I think what we are still seeing in our industry is that when we talk about IT security, we are not yet on a very mature level, right, frankly speaking. And I think this becomes very relevant the more charging stations we have out there, because they all are, or most of them are unattended locations. We have charging stations somewhere, nobody is monitoring them. So therefore, we need to have the right equipment in place to avoid fraud, to avoid any negative impacts. Because also, what we all don't want to have is that people are complaining that they are not their own transactions are being booked from their credit card because someone else hacked their account, which is, by the way, the same risk also for using apps and RFID cards. Maybe the risk is with RFID cards even higher, frankly speaking. But that's the reason why we also believe that IT security becomes a more relevant factor in our industry. And thank you also for sharing the perspective on plug and charge, Elias. As you know, we have I would say, slightly different perspective on this. We believe it's happening already. You can see it out there here, but also in many other global markets as well. And we even believe that the Tesla plug will be a great basement also for plug and charge as well, because we see how well customers adopt this kind of way of charging, right? Plugging in and the rest is done somehow automatically. And this Tesla effect, I think that's very important to achieve this as well with non-Tesla vehicles at non-Tesla charging stations, like with plug and charge. And plug and charge gives us the fundament to make it more secure and more reliable, which is, as we all have agreed already, very important to really move forward into the mass market direction.
Yeah, as you know, Christian, we implemented plug and charge already as one of the first players, so we truly believe in this technology. But the reality, unfortunately for all of us, is that when we have all the cars capable to do plug and charge identification or authentication, and all the chargers can accept this kind of process, when we even reach 50% level, it's not going to be 25, it's rather 20, 30, closer to that. So
of course, there are a lot of pros and
That's
cons argument. On the other hand, let's keep in mind that ISO 15118, which is the technical fundament for plug and charge, is open standard, so you don't have a technical login effect. But you're right. I think there are a lot of challenges still in front of us, and if you ask me, I would also like to see more plug and charge stations out there. We will get some more insights tomorrow in a different panel. What is the actual market adoption? But you're right. We need to increase the adoption of all these kind of solutions.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is that there are obviously different perspectives, and people have different visions of what is likely to happen in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And as far as I know, neither of you can predict the future with 100% accuracy. So all these different ideas will get to play out in the coming years, and maybe something completely new will emerge as an even better option for EV drivers. Okay, we want to make sure that we have enough time for all of the questions that have been sent already to our panelists via the app. Those of you watching in the live stream, we hope you're also actively participating and sending us your questions via the app, because we want to feel you present. If you want, you can even let us know if you are watching from the live stream, just so that we have a little sign of your direct involvement in the conference virtually today. So if we could just take a look at the questions, maybe the first one that was sent in. Credit cards are not a preferred method for many fleet operators. So when we hit mass adoption, what will be the balance of B2C transaction versus B2B representing fleet activity and charging networks? Yeah, we haven't even really spoken about fleet operators. So what is your take on that?
Who wants to take it? You guys are.
Yeah, I think there is many ways to kind of go into this space in terms of how do you in this space create a business model where you really earn money. So of course also for the fleet operators, they also need solutions to this, and there are already fleet solutions on the market with using credit cards for that. So that's obviously not the only way you can implement this, but that's already on the market, and of course should also be used in the case of EV charging.
Maybe just to add one point, that's what I see slightly different, I would say, that credit cards are not at all a good solution for fleets, frankly speaking, because drivers are changing, you have different cars in place, and also there's a maybe kind of risk of misusing credit cards for paying anything else than charging, I don't know. So therefore, I truly believe that especially fleets, of course, they need this kind of digitally integrated ecosystem we spoke about just to make it happen, especially in the next coming years, because that's the only way it will work out. Nobody wants to manage transactions on different cost centers in companies and fleets and stuff like that, right? It needs to be as automated as possible, and therefore I believe that this kind of digital contract-based charging will be the way to go for fleets.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we have a different opinion here. We think that cards have a great role to play within fleet, and when it comes to misusing the card with other types of payments, you can always limit the acceptance to a certain merchant category code related to EV charging, etc., etc. Of course, there are different ways forward here, but I would definitely not rule out credit cards as a great option here going forward. But I mean, we can always explore and see what's the best solutions for different fleet operators.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's get to another question, maybe from the app. And I'm just looking around if somebody wants to ask a question the old-fashioned way. They do. Okay, so let's get one more from the app, and then we'll turn to our in-person audience. Our next question is, with the new regulation of having card readers on all chargers, does that mean contract-based payments will go away in the future, or can they still remain competitive? Yeah, that was a question that I had put.
Maybe I can iterate a little
Sure.
on that. So because I think the interesting part of this is that there are different players in different situations, and how we see that the subscription is more and more comparable to loyalty card. So the bigger your network or your EMP, the bigger your brand, the easier it is to gain subscription customers. But if you're a very small player, it's very, very hard and expensive to build that kind of advertising campaigns and that kind of a position in the market where you could cost efficiently keep your subscription customers. So I think this is the major kind of factor impacting on this development.
I definitely don't think that things will go away, but things will evolve, and you need to open up for different ways of paying for this. So you might be able to have a contract, or you want to do a one-off. You might have one way of doing your payment when you are at home and going to work, and a totally another way when you go on vacation. So you need to kind of prepare for all these different scenarios and make sure that consumers can use whatever they preferred at this specific moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree on this statement. The only challenge is, of course, how to make it happen in an efficient way, right? Because making all these great solutions happen and put them all in place on charging stations, it will drive costs and complexity, and I think we also need to reflect a bit on this. And just responding a bit more specifically to the question, I think we already see a lot of markets on global level who have both solutions in place. In fact, even Germany is requesting a digital payment since 2016 already, and still the majority of charging stations are being done differently. So therefore, again, I think it's great to give customers a choice, but on the other hand, at least the actual EV drivers in some countries still decide for contract-based charging. And I think it's also good to reflect a bit on this, why that's the case. But nevertheless, giving a choice in an efficient way, I think that's super important.
Let's maybe take a question from our live audience. There was a young lady over here on the side there. Yeah.
Thank you for the compliment. My name is Cecile. I'm working at ChargeStrip, which is a navigation provider. I'm very interested to see where the credit card scene will go. But I'm also very curious to understand, in this fragmented industry, how customers will be able to find which stations are compatible with the credit card. Can somebody give some insights on that?
Yeah, it's obvious that there is a lot of work to be done to standardize the data, what you show from the charging stations. But I think the industry is going very fast towards that direction. And at least we are playing with 2 different aggregators of data, and we are going to add that information. So it is available for companies like you then through our aggregators. And of course, that's then visible in Google Maps, Apple Maps, car navigators, so on. So if it's according to the standard, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we can take another one now from the app, and then we'll have the next one from our live audience member. Okay, so credit card payment is not only enabled via a physical terminal on the charger, which requires already big development, but also requires to stick to VAT law guidelines, like sending data to the tax authority. So how are we, you, all of us, going to deal with this? We love taxes.
Yeah, do you want to take it, Fredrik? I think you are the guy who will help us do that.
I think, I mean, it's something that we deal with already today. So it's not a new challenge on how to deal with VAT. VAT is definitely something that is regulated in each country, but you also have some negotiations being done on how you actually charge based on what type of services you pay and where the service provider is located. So I think I don't see any big challenge in this. It's something that actually is working already today.
Okay, you all know the joke about certainty. There's only two things in life that are certain: death and taxes. Right? Okay. All right. We had one more question out in the front over here, and one more here. Okay, let's get to two, but we have to be quick because we just have a few more minutes. So number one and then number two.
Thanks. Henrik from Quello again. So I'm a big proponent, or we are a big proponent of credit card payments. In fact, we haven't built up a single charge point for the last 3 years without a credit card reader. And by the way, we have a constant use of those credit card payments around 1/3 of all transactions. It's a little bit lower, as you said, Christian, in Germany. It's a little bit higher in Sweden. And in other countries, but on average, it's roughly 1/3. Now, there's one thing that I'm really annoyed about, and there's a question to you, David. The PSD2, if you have a number of contactless payments, then requires that you have to put in this PIN. And a PIN pad is the last thing we're going to build in our charge points. This is like, you shoot yourself in the knee with this. Now, you guys, if I'm not mistaken, David, have the option to change the merchant category into something which is similar to parking, whereas if you park, you actually never have to input a PIN for a number of reasons. So why don't you guys do the same with charging? I just don't get it.
It's not us deciding on the exemptions to PSD2, the strong customer authentication. So as you say, in the PSD2, there are the requirements to put in the PIN on large value transactions, as well as on every fifth low value transaction as well. And I can understand that terminals with PIN pad are more costly than contactless only terminals. And until we see an exemption from the regulators for that, then that will be the reality. But what we can do in the meanwhile is look into, okay, can we have cheaper solutions? For example, a PIN pad enabled card terminal on every 10th charger, for example. Can we be creative about that? Finding different types of hybrid models. I don't know. Let's brainstorm about that. Happy to engage in discussions with you at Quello. But it's not us deciding on this. It's a regulatory question.
Okay.
I think that's a really good question, because this is exactly what I asked the European Commission when they were preparing the AFIR. And their answer was that the PSD2 has amazing track record in reducing fraud. And it wouldn't be logical for them to give more and more exemptions to areas where we see super growth happening in the future. And hence, it would be illogical to kind of open again something that we have managed to get into control. And he said that because of that, the people in the Commission don't believe that this kind of exemption will be coming even in the PSD3. And if it was, that's years to come.
Maybe if
Our time is actually up, but I do want to let this person ask the question because I promised. So if there are more questions or you have a follow-up question, you can find them during the lunch break and you can engage in deeper discussions. But let's just get one last person and then we need to move on.
Thank you. This is Sachin from AutoSense Switzerland. So first of all, thanks for this panel. We also believe in credit card as the easy, effective payment solution. In fact, with UBS, the bank, and AMAG, we launched the first Combi card, which is a payment card, as well as the RFID card, for all the charging stations. But the problem we face is that CPOs are not able to process the CDRs in time. So we do have a delay, and this delay can be few minutes to few hours. And I don't know how that situation going to change, but this is a fact that we want easy, effective solution, but behind there are few challenges still in the industry. So I don't know what's your opinion how that will be changing. Thanks.
If we can keep the answer brief, that would be great.
Maybe brief answer. The setup with the payment kiosk we have is integrated to our Virta charging platform, and there is tested that these kind of latencies don't exist. And then there is possibility to maybe use it with roaming. Sophie will tell more about it, but we haven't tested that opportunity yet. So we don't know it's about roaming latencies, it's about different CPOs latencies. It gets complicated when it gets complicated.
So I think that's a very good way to wrap up our panel. It's complicated. Gentlemen, thank you so much. There is obviously a lot more to discuss, but as I said, that's what the lunch break is for. You can go up to any of them, and I'm sure they'll be happy to take more of your questions. But for now, thank you very much indeed to our panelists, Elias, Frederick, David, and Christian. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.